everyone, my name is Felicia, and if you don't already know, I'm a student at launch school. This video is a topic that applies to me and I think applies to a lot of other people too, not just at launch school, but anyone who's had to deal with trying to make a deadline. And that's feeling the pressure to master the material, slow down and really learn it versus making a deadline. This is something I've had to struggle with for most of my time at launch school, and actually a few times I've had to push back my entry into Capstone because of it. I don't regret any of the time that I spent slowing down to master material, but I know I could have been maybe a little bit more efficient in my study habits, and lots of other things play into this too, like family emergencies, family vacations. At some point in September, I had to stop studying completely and go to work for about 3 months. So a lot of those factors play into, why it took me this amount of time, about almost 3 years, to get through launch school. Also, at some points, I just needed more time to study. A lot of the things that we learn at launch school are very complex, and you just need more time to learn it and digest the material. And there's just some things you can't rush. So I had to make those decisions to slow down just so that I could learn it properly. So I'll talk a little bit about my current situation so you guys know where I currently am in the curriculum. I'm due to start Capstone in August, fingers crossed, and I'm really excited but also very nervous. I've been in launch school's core curriculum for almost 3 years. June will officially make 3 years for me. So I'm currently in JS 230, which is launch school's last course in the core curriculum, whether you're in the Ruby track or JavaScript track. And this is where we put everything together from JavaScript, HTML, CSS. We learn about the DOM, we learn about asynchronous code and events, and also at the end JavaScript libraries, and just putting it all together. So I was originally planning to start Capstone in spring of 2022, which begins in January. Obviously I didn't make that deadline, and I'll tell you a little bit why. So last September, my financial situation changed so much that I had to stop studying and find a job and start working immediately. And that was from September to basically November, I think, maybe early December. And the job, for me at least, was so physically and mentally exhausting that by the time I got home, it was just so hard to study. By the time I finished working and quitting my job, it was already late November, maybe early December, somewhere around there. And I was already past the point where I could do the spring cohort. Luckily, I did pass my JavaScript interview in November, but it was kind of stressful for me because I had actually scheduled my interview in August, I think, before I started working. And several times I had to reschedule my interview. And that was really hard for me because I was getting ready, I was going to do it, and I just couldn't. Obviously, this bothered me a lot because I didn't want anything to take me away from my studies. And I had been studying for full time basically since I started launch school, and this was the first time that I had to stop. And I felt that I was already in the front end part of the core curriculum. I was so excited to finally be nearing the end of the journey, and having to stop was really hard. And I was also studying with a group of other people, maybe 3 or 4 other people, and we were all kind of moving at the same pace. And I think we were all planning to study together till the end. And I had to make that decision and tell them, like, hey, I gotta stop studying with you guys, I have to start working. And it just made me feel really kind of not good inside because I felt like I was going to fall behind everyone else, while everyone else could go ahead and move on and, do Capstone and get their job. So that was a really tough time for me. Anyway, well, I couldn't change my situation, so I just had to let it be. I had to go and make the money and make sure I was financially okay to go back to studying. So it was just something I had to do. Doesn't mean I like it, but it was just something I had to do. So in late November, that's when I started object-oriented JavaScript. I was confident that I would make the May cohort, which is the summer cohort, comes obviously right after the spring one. I was very confident I would make that one. But I had maybe a week or 2 of solid studying, and then December came, and December is a time for family and Christmas time and all that kind of stuff. So basically for the month of December, I spent most of my time traveling, driving, going places, and being with my family. And this was really important to me, actually. We were planning this trip for a long time, and I don't get to see my family. They live all over the place, very far apart, and I sometimes go months or maybe years without seeing them. So this was really important to me. I didn't have any problem not studying during this time. I knew that I wanted to spend as much quality time as I could with my family before I start studying. After the holidays came to an end, in January, I started studying full force object-oriented programming in JavaScript. Going into the course, I thought it was going to be easy because I learned Ruby and I learned object-oriented Ruby. And I thought somehow, for some reason, that they were going to be similar, or having learned OOP Ruby, it would have maybe given me some kind of insight into how OOP works with other languages. In hindsight, that course is actually the most difficult course for me in terms of learning the material. Probably the second most compared to when I did Ruby 101 and Ruby 109. That was the hardest for me because I was brand new to launch school, brand new to software engineering and programming in general. So of course that was hard. But I think after Ruby 109, they tell you it's kind of smooth sailing. And I think that was true for me. I didn't really struggle that much for any of the courses. I did really well in my assessments, but for some reason, this course just was difficult. And I have another video I'm gonna make talking about JS 225, which is the Ruby Tracks object-oriented JavaScript course, and just talk a little bit about how the course is broken down, what I thought of it, and what made it so difficult for me. Not to say that it's difficult for everyone, but for some reason it just was for me. So now that we're talking January, February, this is the reason for this whole video, the importance of mastering the fundamentals versus making a deadline, because January, February, I had to make another big decision about Capstone and launch school in general. So yeah, this experience basically prompted the making of this video, and I wanted to share it because I struggled with it a few times, and I know probably other people at launch school probably have struggled with this too. And it's really hard to deal with. There's a lot of emotions and stuff that go into it. I think sometimes we put a lot of unnecessary pressure on us to make it and to finish, that sometimes it could take away the joy of learning and programming and studying. So I'll be very honest, during this time in January, February, I realized because I was having such a hard time in the JavaScript object-oriented course, that I would need more time to study. It wasn't that I had to stop to work or family or anything. It was just that I needed more time. I was having a really difficult time in the course, and it seemed like I was having a harder time than everyone else. And I try not to compare myself, but I do. Even though I know I don't want to or even need to, but I still do. And I was trying to keep up with other people to make the May cohort. And I just knew that I wasn't going to. I knew that I needed more time to learn the material. So basically one day I realized that I was getting very close to the deadline, that I wasn't going to be able to take the time to learn the stuff for JS 225, take both assessments, and take JS 230. I heard that that course was very long, and knowing me historically in launch school, it takes me a little while to get through the courses, to learn new things really well. So I just was struggling. I knew I wasn't going to make it, and I felt all this pressure on myself. I really during this time beat myself up for not like being fast enough, not being able to learn the material fast enough compared to other people. And I just put myself under so much stress because I just was like, the deadline's coming up, I have to make the deadline. And I thought even for a second, I have to rush through this course and learn this really quick, even though I didn't really know how. I don't really know how to study very fast or very quickly. I just take my time. That's just how I do it. That's how I've always done it. And I didn't want to like disappoint my family or make anyone think that I wasn't capable of making a deadline or anything like that, which sounds really dumb, but these are all the things that I thought during this time. I know it's only a difference of just a few months, but I was ready to do Capstone and just be done with it all. I always considered myself a very slow learner. I mean, that's launch school's whole thing, is a slow path to mastery. Yet I still feel bad about it. I still feel like that's something that people would make fun of me for, or look down on me for, and make me feel like, oh, she's the slow girl who never, I say I'm gonna make these deadlines or make these cohorts and I just can't do it for some reason. And I just was really beating myself up for it for absolutely no reason. Despite all of those ugly feelings, I still made the decision to slow down and just shoot for the fall cohort, fall 2022. So I think Capstone prep for that starts in July, early July or mid-July, something like that. And I thought that would actually work out so much better for me. I could slow down, take my time, learn everything, and ace these tests, and still have time to do JS 230. Hopefully finish that a little bit early and maybe go on a vacation before I start Capstone prep. It's crazy just how much pressure we can put on ourselves for these unnecessary things. And I was really feeling bad because, again, I was studying with these students and I just felt like if I make this decision to slow down and kind of hold myself back a little bit longer to study, all these people are going to move past me and they're going to go to Capstone and get their job, and I'm still going to be here. And I don't know why I make myself feel bad about that, and I shouldn't. And I just want to say, if you're at law school and you're feeling that same way, or if you're going through that, please don't beat yourself up. Please don't think that it's anything to feel bad about. It's not like we're being left behind. This isn't a race. It doesn't matter who gets their job first or finishes first. It doesn't matter, because we're all different people on different paths trying to do different things, maybe in the same field, but no one's path can even be remotely compared to someone else's. And I'm saying all this to you guys as I'm telling myself too, because I really should learn this at some point and not put myself under stress when I don't need to. So on the one hand, I wanted to master material, learn it really well, and ace the assessments, but also on the other hand, I wanted to just be done. So during this time when I was trying to study and make a decision, I actually came to the point where I just didn't like studying. I started to hate it. Not because I hated the material itself or the content. I was just so stressed out because every time I sat down to study, I maybe would get tripped up on a concept, or I couldn't explain it properly, or I couldn't solve an exercise. And when that happened, I would think, oh no, I'm having a hard time. I'm gonna need more time to learn this because for some reason I'm just not learning it, or I'm just confused. And that made studying stressful because I always wanted to be right, or I always wanted to get it. And when I didn't get it, I thought, I'm gonna need more time. So when I started to really not enjoy studying anymore, that's when I had to one day sit down with myself and really think, what is the most important thing here? And I think everyone maybe who's struggling with the same thing needs to have that talk with themselves and ask themselves, what is the most important thing here? Master material, ace the test, do really well, or make the deadline? Do I rush this course, try to learn all these things really quickly and take the test, and in my attempt to hurry up and get to Capstone, I actually fail the test and I don't learn the concepts properly? And then what? I'm gonna have to redo them? Or what if I get into JS 230 and I just don't know what I'm doing because I didn't learn things properly? Is it really worth getting into Capstone if I don't know what I'm doing, if I don't understand the concepts, the fundamentals that I need to have to do well in Capstone? What if I get to Capstone and I am falling behind, or I'm not up to standard like the other participants because I just didn't spend time learning the things while I was in core like I was supposed to? I asked myself all those questions and I realized, no, none of that is worth it to me. The most important thing to me, and the whole reason why I chose launch school in the first place, was to master the fundamentals. And I know I could do it, obviously, with all the other assessments that I've taken and done really well on. I knew I was capable of acing these tests and doing well and learning it. And I was not ready to sacrifice that to make Capstone. That was the most important thing to me. And once I realized that and kind of realized my goal, it made the decision of pushing it back and starting in August so much easier. I even went back to the mastery page on Law School's website and read the whole thing, read the charts, read the little charts and everything, just to remind myself of why I'm here at launch school and remind myself that this isn't something I could rush. So yeah, I think sometimes I lose sight of what's important to me. I just forget what's truly important. So I had to take time to kind of sit back and think about my situation, think about my goals, what they were, what they are, and I just had to think, okay, I'm gonna have to just adjust, and I need more time to study. There's nothing wrong with that. I know it's important to me, so I will take the time to do this. And I wanted to walk away from the assessments knowing that I aced them, that I did really well on them, and I worked my butt off to study. And there's just nothing like getting, if you're at launch school, you know, there's nothing like getting that launch school support email and scrolling down to the bottom and seeing your grade and seeing that you got an A plus or an A or whatever it is. There's just nothing like that feeling of acing the test, knowing that all the work and the sweat and tears that went into it was worth it. That's what I wanted, and that's what I actually ended up getting, because I made that decision and it was a night and day difference in terms of like my mental health and stress levels. It just felt like a huge weight came off my shoulders when I decided to slow down. I took a break. I think I took a break that day from studying and just relaxed and said, okay, I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm not going to stress. I'm just going to learn the material as it is for that day. And that's how I took it. I wasn't studying constantly with a thought of assessment in my mind, thinking, okay, I'm going to learn this concept, but I have to learn it well and I have to learn it today because I got to take this test tomorrow. I just studied whatever I had in front of me and just made sure I studied it well. And I just kept doing that until I got closer and closer to my unofficial deadline of taking the actual test. And I knew once I took the test and got my grade that I was ready, and I finally learned it and I knew it. Making that decision made studying enjoyable again, because you never want to get to that point for whatever it is that you're doing, not even just programming, but you never want to get to that point of almost hating it, just not liking doing it anymore. And that's the point I reached, because I was so stressed out about this deadline and capstone and trying to keep up with other people. And that was so unnecessary. And looking back, I was just way too hard on myself. But I'm glad that I was able to come to a decision that gave me so much more peace. And so I don't regret any of it. I could sleep again, and I was able to find a new study group and just learn the stuff. It was actually fun again. It brought back the joy of programming to me. And that was probably one of the biggest things I learned from this, to always find joy and peace in what you're doing. And if it ever becomes too stressful or too much, then something's not right. So I had to kind of evaluate what I was doing, because obviously I wasn't going about this with the right attitude. I'm really happy because I learned those concepts like the back of my hand. I learned it so well and so much that I was even dreaming. So that's the thing that happens to me right before I start taking tests, maybe like a week or two before. I start dreaming about programming and I'm solving problems in my head. And at that point, I know that I'm ready. So that's kind of how I gauge taking assessments, is when I am literally programming in my dreams and things are actually making sense. So I got to that point, took the test, I did well, and it was just so worth it. So some advice for people who are struggling with this currently, or who knows, you might have to come to this decision later on in launch school, but some advice: don't let the stress of trying to make a deadline or keep up with other people take away your peace and take away your enjoyment of whatever it is that you're doing. If you're able to, maybe take a few months in between if you're financially okay and you're trying to do that same balance that I had to, master material versus trying to hurry up and make a deadline. Maybe ask yourself and say, what is more important to me? Once you figure that out, once you can answer that question, the answer will probably be there. You'll probably already know what it is that you have to do. Anytime you lose sight of it and you're stressing out about it, remember your goals. Remember why you came to launch school. Remember that we're here to master material, and know that you are capable of doing it. And if you need more time, absolutely 100% you have to take that time. If you have to work, if you have to find a job, take care of family, spend time with family, take more time to learn the material, whatever it is. If you have to do those things, do them, and don't stress out about making any deadlines, because it won't help you. Added stress trying to prepare for a test won't help the outcome, and it will just take your peace away. I know everyone's situation is different and not everyone can spare the few months, and it's probably better to get to Capstone as soon as possible. But if you can, I would suggest taking a little more time if you need to learn it properly, because you won't regret it. You won't regret getting that launch school support email and seeing you got an A+ on something. It's not worth it for the sake of your mental health and peace to put yourself under unnecessary stress. And actually, during this time when I was trying to figure it all out, I talked to a lot of other students in my course and previous courses, and found that a lot of other people were actually struggling with the same exact thing I was. There's a lot of students who go through this too, where they're trying to balance, do I take more time to learn this material because it is a lot of stuff, it's very complex, not just something that you can learn like that, versus trying to make Capstone. And there's a lot of other students who also had to push back their deadlines too. And it made me feel a lot better, because I thought it was just me being slow or being whatever it is, and it wasn't. And so just reaching out to other people and talking about my situation made it so much easier for me. I'm for sure never going to sacrifice my mental health and peace for the sake of a deadline. If I need to take more time to learn something, I'm definitely going to take the time, not stress myself over it, because it was just too much to deal with. And I probably could have been more efficient and better at studying if I didn't have all this extra stress on top of me. So I probably made my life a lot harder than it needed to be. So just, if you're going through this too, always remember your goals. That will help guide you in the right direction. And reach out to other people and talk about your situation, because chances are 100% there is someone else who has gone through the same thing or is currently going through the same thing. Chances are you will find someone that you can talk to about this that will make making the decision a lot easier. I hope this video was helpful. Sorry if I was rambling a lot, but I really wanted to talk about my experience, because it was probably one of the most impactful experiences being here at launch school. And I feel like I really learned a lot about myself and helped realign me in terms of my goals, and it really helped me to remember why I chose launch school, why I decided to do this in the first place. And even now, still to this day, that's what I always think about when I'm learning stuff for JS 230. That's what's guiding me every day when I'm studying. And even when I'm having a hard time, I always, make sure that I learn to enjoy the process. So I never want to get to that point again where I'm struggling so much that I just start hating doing it. I don't want to ever get back to that. So if anyone out there is also struggling with the same thing or anything else really, you can reach out to me, reach out to anyone, literally anyone in launch school, and start talking to people. There's so many things that you can learn from others, and they can learn from you too. I think the community we have is so awesome. And again, they helped me a lot in this difficult time for me. So just remember that everyone goes at their own pace, and we'll all get there eventually. But in the meantime, we just have to enjoy the ride. So that's it for this one. I hope you liked the video. I'm going to try to make another video on the JS 225 object-oriented course. Just talk about what the course was like, what I thought about it, why it was so difficult for me, things like that. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.